original stage at the Cleveland Playhouse. Thank you for coming tonight. We're here because, as many of you know, the large auditorium is undergoing its long overdue, loving restoration and renovation. So we are without a space, and the Playhouse has warmly welcomed us here, and we're really excited, and we want to thank them so much for making us feel at home. As you may know, the Shaker Schools Foundation is behind the renovation of the large auditorium, and we hope that you can become a part of that exciting campaign. And there's information in the lobby if you'd like more information on how to be a part of that. If you are a patron of our program, we want to thank you so much. If you're not, I want to invite you to become a patron. I thought I had a patron card here. There's a green card inside your playbill. Your tax-deductible donations support so much of the work that we're able to do, so we really encourage you to become a patron. And we have a student at the patron table who would be more than happy to talk to you about that program. It's a very small stage, it's a very small and intimate theater, nothing like the large auditorium. And so our company this year is smaller in numbers, but our management staff is probably double the size of the people who are on stage tonight. And they've been doing everything from designing graphics to designing the playbill to doing research. They're in the booth, they're in the dressing rooms, they're everywhere. And we're really excited to give them management opportunities in real professional theater, and for the actors as well. We want to thank our school district for their support of the arts. We're very, very grateful. And now a little bit of housekeeping. Please, no flash photography or video. We are taping the show tonight, so you can laugh even more, but don't even lose candy wrappers maybe. Please turn off your cell phones, anything that's electronic, and do power it completely down. Even a vibrate is a distraction. There is one 15-minute intermission, and I can say this here, but I won't be able to say it at the high school. Parents, please be sure to patronize the bar in the lobby. We have ushers who will help you find the bar and the restroom, so please don't hesitate to ask them. And please do stay afterwards to say hello and greet the entire production company out in the Drury lobby. Please say hello. We'd love you to do that. Thank you so much for being here, and enjoy Oscar Wilde's The Importance of Being Earnest.
Did you hear what I was playing, Lane? I didn't think it polite to listen, son. I'm sorry for that, for your sake. I don't play accurately. Anyone can play accurately, but I play with a wonderful expression. As far as the piano is concerned, sentiment is my forte. I keep a science for life. Yes, sir. And speaking of the science of life, have you got the cucumber sandwiches cut for Lady Bracknell? Yes, sir. Oh, by the way, lady, I see from your book that on Thursday night, when Lord Shawman and Mr. Worthing were dining with me, 8 bottles of champagne are entered as having been consumed. Yes, sir. 8 bottles and a pint. Why is it that at a bachelor's establishment, the servants invariably drink the champagne? I ask merely for information.
I attribute it to the superior quality of the wine, sir. I've often observed that in married households, the champagne is rarely of a first-rate track.
Good heavens, is marriage so demoralizing as that?
I believe it is a very pleasant state, sir. I've had very little experience with it myself up to the present. I've only been married once, and that was in consequence of a misunderstanding between myself and a young person.
I don't know that I'm much interested in your family life, then.
No, sir. It's not a very interesting subject. I never think of it myself.
Very natural, I'm sure. But that will do then. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Lane's views on marriage seem somewhat lax. Really, if the lower orders can set us a good example, what on earth is the use of them?
There seems a class who have absolutely no sense of moral responsibility.
Mr. Earnest, welcome.
Well, how are you, my dear Earnest? What brings you up to town?
Oh, pleasure, pleasure. What else to bring one anywhere? Eating as usual, I see, Algy.
I believe it is customary in good society to take some slight refreshment at 5 o'clock. Where have you been since Thursday?
In the country. What on earth do you do there? When one is in town, one amuses oneself. When one is in the country, one amuses other people. It's excessively boring.
And who are the people you amuse?
Oh, neighbors, neighbors.
Got nice neighbors in your pot of Shropshire?
Perfectly horrid, never speak to one of them.
How immensely you must amuse them. By the way, Shropshire is your county, is it not?
It's Shropshire?
Yes, of course.
Hello. Why all these huts? Why do you come to sandwiches? Why such breakfast extravagance when one so young? Who's coming to tea?
Merely Aunt Augusta and Gwendolyn.
How perfectly delightful.
Well, I'm afraid Aunt Augusta won't quite approve of your being here.
May I ask why?
My dear fellow, the way you flirt with Gwendolyn is perfectly disgraceful. It is almost as bad as the way Gwendolyn flirts with you.
I am in love with Gwendolyn. I've come up to town especially to propose to her.
I thought you would come up for pleasure. I call that business.
How romantic you
I
are.
really don't see anything romantic in proposing. It is very romantic to be in love, but there is nothing romantic about a definite proposal. Why one may be accepted. One usually is, I believe. Then, the excitement is all over. The very essence of romance is uncertainty. If ever I get married, I'll certainly try to forget the fact.
I have no doubt about that, Giorgi. The divorce court was specially invented for people whose memories are so curiously constituted.
Speculating on that subject. Divorces are made in heaven. Please don't touch the cucumber sandwiches. They are all especially for Aunt Augusta.
Well, you've been eating them all this time.
That is quite a different matter. She is my aunt. Have some bread and butter. Bread and butter is for Gwendolyn. Gwendolyn is devoted to bread and butter.
What good bread and butter it is, too.
My dear fellow, you needn't eat as if you were going to eat it all. You behave as if you were married to her already. You are not married to her already, and I don't think you ever will be.
Why on earth do you say that?
Well, in the first place, girls never marry the men they flirt with. Girls don't think it right.
That is nonsense.
It isn't. It accounts for the extraordinary number of bachelors one sees all over the place. In the second place, I don't give my consent.
Your consent?
My dear fellow, Gwendolyn is my first cousin. And before I allow you to marry her, you are going to have to clear up the whole question of Cecily.
Cecily? What on earth do you mean by Cecily? What, Algy, do you mean by Cecily? I don't know anyone of the name of Cecily.
Bring me that cigarette case Mr. Worthing left in the smoking room last time he dined here.
Yes. Do you mean to say that you had my cigarette case all this time? I wish to goodness you'd let me know. I've been writing frantic letters to Scotland Yard about it. I was nearly offering a large reward.
Well, I wish you would offer one. I happen to be more than usually hard up.
There is no good offering a large reward now that nothing was found.
I think that is rather mean of you, Ernest, I must say. However, it makes no matter, for now that I look at the inscription inside, I find that the thing isn't yours after all.
Of course it's mine. You've seen me use it 100 times, and you have no right whatsoever to read what is written inside. It is a very ungentlemanly thing to read a private cigarette case.
So it is absurd to have a hard and fast rule about what one should read and what one shouldn't. More than half of modern culture depends on what one shouldn't read.
I am quite aware of that, but I don't propose to discuss modern culture with you. This isn't the sort of thing one should talk about in private. I simply want my cigarette case back.
Yes, but this isn't your cigarette case. The cigarette case is a present from someone of the name of Cecily, and you said you didn't know anyone of that name.
Well, if you want to know, Cecily happens to be my aunt.
Your aunt?
Yes. Charm the lady is too, lives at Tunbridge Wells.
Just get it back to me, Giorgi. But why does she call herself Little Cecily if she is your aunt and lives at Tunbridge Wells? From Little Cecily, with her fondest love.
My dear fellow, what on earth is there in that? Some aunts are tall, some aunts are not tall. That is truly a matter aunt being allowed to decide for herself. You seem to think that all aunts should be exactly as your aunt. That is absurd.
For goodness sake, give me back my cigarette case!
But why does your aunt call you her uncle? From little Cecily, with her fondest love, to her dear Uncle Jack. There's no objection, I admit, to an aunt being a small aunt, but why an aunt, no matter what her size may be, should call her own nephew her uncle, I can't quite make out. Besides, your name isn't Jack at all, it is Ernest. It isn't Ernest. It's Jack. Your voice told me it was Ernest. I've introduced you to everyone as Ernest. You answer to the name of Ernest. You look as though your name were Ernest. You are the most earnest-looking person I ever saw in my life. It is perfectly absurd you're saying your name is not Ernest. It's on your cards. Here is one of them. Mr. Ernest Worthing, B4, the Albany. I'll keep this as proof your name is Ernest if ever you attempt to deny it to me, or to Gwendolyn, or to anyone else.
Well, my name is Jack in the country and Ernest in town, and the cigarette case was given to me in the country.
Yes, but that does not explain the fact that your small Aunt Cecily, who lives at Tunbridge Wells, calls you her dear uncle. Come on, boy, you would much better have the thing out at once.
Auntie, you talk exactly as if you were a dentist. Yeah, it's a very vulgar thing to talk like a dentist when one is not, in fact, a dentist. It lost a false impression.
Well, that is exactly what dentists always do. Tell me the whole thing. I may mention that I have always suspected you of being a secret and confirmed Bunburyist. And I'm quite sure of it now.
Bunburyist? What on earth do you mean by Bunburyist?
I'll reveal to you the meaning of that incomparable expression as soon as you are kind enough to inform me why you are Ernest in town and Jack in the country.
Produce my cigarette case first.
Here it is. Now produce your explanation. And pray, make it improbable.
There is nothing improbable about the meeting at all. In fact, it is perfectly ordinary. Old Mr. Thomas Cardew, who adopted me when I was a little boy, made me in his will providing to his granddaughter, Miss Cecily Cardew. Cecily, who addressed me as her uncle from motives for the respect that you could not possibly appreciate, lives at my place in the country under the charge of her admirable governess, Miss Prism.
And where is that place in the country, by the way?
That is nothing to you, dear boy. You are not going to be invited. I may tell you quite candidly that it is not in Shropshire.
I suspected that, dear fellow. I have Bunburied all over Shropshire on 2 separate occasions. Now go on. Why are you Ernest in town and Jack in the country?
My dear fellow, I don't know if you'll be able to understand my true motives. You are hardly serious enough. When one is placed in the position of guardian, one must adopt a very high moral tone in all subjects. It is one's duty to do so. And as a high moral tone can hardly be considered to conduce very much towards one's health or one's happiness, in order to get up to time, I've always pretended to have a younger brother by the name of Earnest, who gets into the most dreadful scrapes. That, my dear Algy, is the whole truth. Pure and simple.
The truth is rarely pure and never simple. Modern life would be very tedious if it were either, and modern literature a complete impossibility.
That wouldn't be at all a bad thing.
Literary criticism is not your forte, dear fellow. Don't try it. You should leave that to people who haven't been at a university. They do it so well in the daily papers. What you really are is a Bunburyist. I was quite right in saying you were a Bunburyist. You are one of the most advanced Bunburyists I know.
What on earth do you mean by Bunburyist?
You have invented a very useful younger brother called Earnest in order that you may be able to come up to town as often as you like. I have invented an invaluable permanent invalid called Bunbury so that I may be able to go down into the country as often as I choose. Bunbury is perfectly invaluable. If it weren't for Bunbury's extraordinary bad health, for instance, I wouldn't be able to dine with you at Willis's tonight, for I've really been engaged to Aunt Augusta for more than a week.
I haven't asked you to dine with me anywhere tonight.
I know you're absurdly careless about sending out invitations. It is very foolish of you. Nothing annoys people so much as not receiving an invitation.
But much better dine with your Aunt Augusta.
I
I haven't the smallest intention of doing anything of the kind. To begin with, I dine there on Monday, and once a week is quite enough to dine with one's own relations. In the second place, whenever I do dine there, I am always treated as a member of the family and sent down with either no woman at all or two. In the third place, I know perfectly well whom she will sit me next to tonight. She will sit me next to Mary Farquhar, who always flirts with her own husband across the dinner table. That is not very pleasant. Indeed, it is not even decent, and that sort of thing is enormously on the increase. The amount of women in London who flirt with their own husbands is perfectly scandalous. It looks so bad. It is merely washing one's clean linen in public. Besides, now that I know you to be a confirmed bunburyist, I naturally want to talk to you about bunburying. I want to tell you the rules.
I'm not a bunburyist at all. If Gwendolen accepts me, I'm going to kill my brother Ernest. Indeed, I think I'll do so many. Cecily is a little too much interested in him. It's rather a bore. So I'm going to get rid of hers, and I strongly advise you to do the same with with your invalid friend who has the absurd name.
Nothing will induce me to part with Bunbury. And if you ever get married, which seems to me extremely problematic, you will be very glad to know Bunbury. A man who marries without knowing Bunbury has a very tedious time of it.
That is nonsense. If I were to marry a charming girl like Gwendolen, and she is the only girl I ever saw in my life who I would marry, I certainly won't want to know Bunbury.
Then your wife will. You don't seem to realize that in married life, 3 is company and 2 is none.
That is a theory that the French drama has been propounding for the last 50 years.
Yes, and the happy English home has proved in half the time.
Don't try to be cynical. It is perfectly easy to be cynical.
I did know it isn't easy to be anything nowadays. There's such beastly competition about. Ah, that must be Aunt Augusta. Only creditors or relatives ever ring in that Wagnerian manner. Now, if I get you out of the way for 10 minutes so that you can have an opportunity for proposing to Gwendolen, may I dine with you tonight at Willis's?
Yes, I suppose so, if you want to.
Yes, but you must get serious about it. I hate people who are not serious about meals. It is so shallow of them.
Lady Bracknell and Miss That.
Good afternoon, dear Algernon. I hope you're behaving very well.
I'm feeling very well, Aunt Augusta.
That's not quite the same thing. In fact, the two things rarely go together.
Dear me, you are smart.
I'm always smart. Aren't I, Mr. Worthing?
You are quite perfect, Miss Fairfax.
Oh, I hope I'm not that. It would leave no room for developments, and I tend to develop in many directions.
I'm sorry if you are a little late, Algernon, but I was obliged to call on dear Lady Harbury. I hadn't been there since her poor husband's death. I never saw a woman so altered. She looks quite 20 years younger. And now... and now I'll have a cup of tea and one of those nice cucumber sandwiches you promised me.
Certainly, Aunt Augusta.
Won't you come sit here, Gwendolen?
Thanks, Mamma. I'm quite comfortable where I am.
Good heavens. Lady, why are there no cucumber sandwiches?
I ordered them specially.
There were no cucumbers in the market this morning, sir. Twice.
No cucumbers.
No, sir. Nothing for ready money.
That will do, Lane. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
I'm greatly distressed, Aunt Augusta, on there being no cucumbers, not even for ready money.
It really makes no matter, Algernon. I had some crumpets with Lady Harbury, who seems to me to be living entirely for pleasure now.
I hear her hair has turned quite gold from grief.
It certainly has changed colour, from what cause I of course cannot say. Thank you. Quite a treat for you tonight, Algernon. I'm going to send you down with Mary Farquhar. She is such a nice woman and so attentive to her husband. It is delightful to watch them.
I am afraid I shall have to give up the pleasure of dining with you tonight after all, Aunt Augusta.
I hope not, Algernon. It would put my table completely out. Your uncle would have to dine upstairs. Fortunately, he is accustomed to that.
It is a great bore, and I need hardly say it, it's a disappointment to me. But the fact is, I've just hit a telegram to say that my poor friend Bunbury is quite ill again. They seem to think I should be with him.
It's very strange. This Mr. Bunbury seems to suffer from curiously bad health.
Yes, poor Bunbury is a dreadful invalid.
Well, I must say, Algernon, that I think it's high time Mr. Bunbury made up his mind whether he was going to live or die. This shilly-shallying with the question is absurd, nor do I in any way approve of the modern sympathy with invalids. I consider it morbid. Happiness of any kind is hardly a thing to be encouraged in others. Health is the primary duty of life. I'm always telling that to your poor uncle, but he never seems to take much notice as far as any improvement in his ailments goes. I should be much obliged if you would ask Mr. Bunbury from me not to have overlaps on Saturday, for I rely on you to arrange my music for me. It is my last reception, and one wants something that will encourage conversation, particularly at the end of the season, when everyone has practically said whatever it is they had to say, which in most cases was probably not much.
I'll speak to Bunbury, Aunt Augusta, if he is still conscious, and I think I can promise that he will be all right by Saturday. Of course, the music is a great difficulty. You see, if one plays good music, people don't listen, and if one plays bad music, people don't talk. However, I'll run over the program I've drawn out, if you will kindly come to the next room for a moment.
Thank you, Algernon. It's very thoughtful of you. I'm sure the program will be delightful, after a few expurgations. French songs I cannot possibly allow. People always seem to think that they're improper and either look shocked, which is vulgar, or laugh, which is worse. But German sounds a thoroughly respectable language, and indeed I believe is so. Gwendolyn, you'll accompany me.
Certainly, Mamma.
Charming day, isn't it, Miss Fairfax?
Pray don't talk to me about the weather, Mr. Worthing. Whenever people talk to me about the weather, I always feel quite certain that it means something else. And that makes me so nervous.
Well, I do mean something else.
I thought so. In fact, I am never wrong.
And I'd like to be allowed to take advantage of Lady Ratcliffe's temporary absence.
I would certainly advise you to do so. Mamma has a way of coming suddenly back into a room that I've often had to speak to her about.
Miss Fairfax, ever since I met you, I've admired you more than any girl I've met since, well, I met you.
Yes, I'm quite aware of the fact. And I often wish that in public at any rate, you would have been more demonstrative. For me, you've always had an irresistible fascination. Even before I met you, I was far from indifferent to you. We live, I hope you know, Mr. Worthing, in an age of ideals. But that just wants to mention of more expensive monthly magazines than just read for original pockets, I'm told it. My ideal has always been to love someone with the name of Earnest. There's something in that name that inspires absolute confidence. The moment Algernon first mentioned to me that he had a friend called Earnest, I knew I was destined to love you.
You really love me, Gwendolyn?
Passionately.
Oh, darling, you don't know how happy you've made me.
I am Earnest.
Well, you don't really mean to say that you couldn't love me if my name isn't Earnest.
But your name is Earnest.
Yes, I know it is. Supposing it was something else. Do you mean to say that you couldn't love me then?
Ah, that is clearly a metaphysical speculation. And like most metaphysical speculations, has very little reference at all to the actual facts of real life as we know them.
Personally, darling, to speak quite candidly, I don't care much about the name of Earnest. I don't think the name suits me at all.
It suits you perfectly. It is a divine name. It has a music of its own. It produces vibrations.
Well, really, I must say that I think there are a lot much nicer names. I think Jack, for instance, a charming name.
Jack? There's very little music in the name of Jack. Indeed, any at all. Does not thrill, produces absolutely no vibrations. I have known several Jacks, and they were all without exception more than usually plain. Besides, Jack has notorious domesticity for John. I pity any woman married to my called John. She would probably never know of the entrancing pleasure of a single moment's solitude. The only really safe name is Earnest.
Gwendolyn, I must be christened at once. I mean, we must be married at once. There is no time to be lost.
Married, Mr. Worthing?
Well, surely. You know that I love you, and you led me to believe that you are not absolutely indifferent to me.
I adore you, but you haven't proposed to me yet. Nothing is considered all about marriage. The subject has not even been touched on.
May I propose to you now?
I think it would be an admirable opportunity. And to spare you the possible disappointment, Mr. Worthing, I think it is only fair to tell you quite frankly that I'm fully determined to accept you.
Gwendolyn?
Yes, Mr. Worthing? What have you got to say to me?
You know what I've got to say to you.
Yes, but you don't say it.
Gwendolyn, will you marry me?
Of course I will, darling. How long have you been about it? I'm afraid you've had very little experience in how to propose.
I own one. I've never loved anyone in my life but you.
Yes, but one ought to propose for practice. I know my brother Gerald does. All my girlfriends tell me so. What a wonderfully blue eyes you have, Ernest. They are quite big. I hope you are all going to be that way, especially when the other people are present.
Mr. Worthing, rise, sir, from his semi-recumbent posture. It is most indecorous.
Mamma, I must beg you to retire. This is no place for you. Besides, Mr. Worthing is not quite finished yet.
Finished what, may I ask?
I am engaged to Mr. Worthing, Mamma.
Pardon me, but you are not engaged to anyone. When you do become engaged to someone, I or your father, should his health permit him, will inform you of the fact. An engagement should come on a young girl as a surprise, pleasant or unpleasant as the case may be. It's hardly a matter that she can be allowed to arrange for herself. Now I have a few questions to put to you, Mr. Worthing. While I'm making these inquiries, you, Gwendolyn, will wait for me below in the carriage.
Mamma!
In the carriage, Gwendolyn. Gwendolyn, the carriage!
Yes, Mamma.
You can take a seat, Mr. Worthing.
Thank you, Lady Bracknell. I prefer standing.
I feel bound to tell you that you are not down on my list of eligible young men. Although I have the same list as the dear Duchess of Bolton has. We work together, in fact. However, I'm quite ready to enter your name should your answers be what a truly affectionate mother requires. Do you smoke?
Well, yes, I must admit I smoke.
I'm glad to hear it. A man should always have an occupation of some kind. There are too many idle men in London as it is. How old are you?
29.
Very good age to be married at. I've always been of the opinion that a man who desires to get married should know everything or nothing. Which do you know?
I know nothing, Lady Bracknell.
I'm pleased to hear it. I approve of nothing that tampers with natural ignorance. Ignorance is like a delicate, exotic fruit. Touch it and the bloom is gone. The whole theory of modern education is radically unsound. Fortunately, in England at any rate, education produces no effect whatsoever. Indeed, it would probably prove a serious danger to the upper classes and lead to acts of violence in Grosvenor Square. What is your income?
Between 7,000 and 8,000 a year.
In land or in investments?
In investments, chiefly.
That is satisfactory. What between the duties expected of one during one's lifetime and the duties exacted from one after one's death, land is ceased to be either a profit or a pleasure. It gives one position and prevents one from keeping it up. That's all that can be said about that.
I have a country house with some land attached to it, of course, I believe 1,500 acres.
But I don't depend on that for my real income. In fact, as far as I can make out, the poachers are the only ones who make anything out of it.
A country house. How many bedrooms? Well, that point can be cleared up afterwards. You do have a townhouse, I hope. A girl with a simple, unspoiled nature like Gwendolyn can hardly be expected to reside in the country.
I own a house in Belgrave Square, but it is let by the Lady Bloxham. Of course, I can get it back whenever I like at 6 months' notice.
Lady Bloxham, I don't know her.
Oh, she goes about very little. She's a lady considerably advanced in years.
Ah, nowadays that is no guarantee of respectability of character. What number in Belgrave Square?
149.
The unfashionable side. I thought there was something. However, that can be easily altered.
Do you mean the fashion or the side?
Both, if necessary, I presume. What's your politics?
Well, I'm afraid I really have none. I'm a liberal unionist.
Oh, they count as Tories. They dine with us, or come in the evening at any rate. Now, to minor matters. Are your parents living?
I have lost both my parents.
Both? To lose one parent, Mr. Worthing, may be regarded as a misfortune. To lose both looks like carelessness. Who was your father? He was evidently a man of some wealth. Was he born in what the radical papers called the purple of commerce, or did he rise from the ranks of the aristocracy?
I'm afraid I really don't know. The fact is, Lady Bracknell, I told you, I seem to have lost my parents. It would be near the truth to say that my parents seem to have lost me. I don't actually know who I am by birth. I was found.
Found?
Yes. Old Mr. Thomas Cardew, an old gentleman of a very kindly and charitable disposition, found me and gave me the name of Worthing because he happened to have a first-class ticket to Worthing in his pocket at the time. Worthing is a place in Sussex. It is a seaside resort.
And where did the charitable gentleman with the first-class ticket to this seaside resort find you?
In a handbag.
A handbag?
Yes, Lady Bracknell, I was found in a handbag. A somewhat large leather handbag with handles to it. An ordinary handbag, in fact.
In what locality did this Mr. James or Thomas Cardew come across this ordinary handbag?
In the cloakroom at Victoria Station. The bag was given to him in the estate for his own.
The cloakroom at Victoria Station.
Yes, the Brighton line.
The line is immaterial. Mr. Worthing, I confess I am somewhat bewildered by what you have just told me. To be born or at any rate bred in a handbag, whether it had handles or not, seems to me to display a contempt for the ordinary decencies of family life that remind one of the worst excesses of the French Revolution. And I presume you know what that unfortunate movement led to? As for the particular locality in which the handbag was found, a cloakroom at a railway station might serve to conceal a social indiscretion. Has probably indeed been used for that purpose before now, but it can hardly be regarded as an assured basis for a recognized position in good society.
Well, may I ask you then what you would advise me to do? I need hardly say I would do anything in the world to ensure Gwendolyn's happiness.
I would strongly advise you, Mr. Worthing, to try and acquire some relations as soon as possible, and to make a definite effort to produce, at any rate, one parent of either sex before the season is quite over.
I don't see I can possibly do that. I can produce the handbag at any moment. It is in my dressing room at home. I really think that should satisfy you, Lady Bracknell.
Me, sir? What has it to do with me? You can hardly imagine that Lord Bracknell and myself would ever dream of allowing our only daughter, a girl brought up with the utmost care, to marry into a cloakroom and form alliance with a parcel. Good morning, Mr. Worthing.
Good morning.
For goodness sake, don't let it nasty to Algie! How idiotic you are!
Didn't it go off all right, old boy? You don't mean to say Gwendolyn refused you. I know it is a way she has. She's always refusing people. I think it is most ill-natured of her.
No, Gwendolyn is as right as a trivet. As far as she is concerned, we are engaged.
Mother, you know it's unbearable. I never met such a gorgon.
I don't really know what a gorgon is,
But I'm sure that Lady Bracknell is one. In any case, she's a monster. Happening a myth, which is rather unfair. I beg your pardon, Auntie. I suppose I shouldn't pop up your own mountain that way before you.
My dear boy, I love hearing my relations' views. It's the only thing that makes me put up with them at all. Relations are simply a tedious pack of people who
smallest knowledge of when to die. That is nonsense. It isn't.
Don't argue about the facts. You always want to argue about things.
That's exactly what things were originally made for.
On my word, if I thought that, I'd shoot myself. You don't suppose there's any chance of Gwendolyn becoming like her mother in about 150 years, do you, Alton?
All women become like their mothers. That's the tragedy. No man does. That's his.
Is that clever?
It was perfectly phrased, and quite as true as any observation on civilized life should be.
Oh, I am sick to death of cleverness. Everybody's clever nowadays. You can't go anywhere without meeting clever people. The thing has become an absolute public nuisance. I wish to goodness we had a few fools left.
We have.
What do they talk about? The fools?
Oh, about the clever people, of course.
What fools?
By the way, have you told Gwendolyn yet the truth about your being Ernest in town and Jack in the country?
My dear fellow, the truth isn't the sort of thing one tells to a nice, sweet, refined girl. What extraordinary ideas you have about the way to behave to a woman.
The only way to behave to a woman is to make love to her if she is pretty and to someone else if she is plain.
That is nonsense.
What about your brother? What about the profligate Earnest?
Well, before the end of the week, I shall have got rid of him. I'll say he died of apoplexy in Paris. Lots of people die quite suddenly of apoplexy, don't they?
Yes, but it's hereditary, my dear fellow. It's the sort of thing that runs in families. You would much better say a severe chill.
And you're not sure a severe chill is not hereditary or anything of that kind?
Of course it isn't.
Very well. My poor brother Ernest is carried off suddenly in Paris by severe chill. That gets rid of him.
But I thought you said that Miss Cardew was a little too much interested in your poor brother Ernest. Won't she feel his loss a great deal?
No, that is all right. Cecily is not a silly romantic girl, I am glad to say. She's got a capital appetite, goes long walks, and pays no attention at all to her lessons.
I should rather like to see Cecily.
I will take very good care that you never do. She is excessively pretty, and she is just only 18.
Have you told Gwendolyn yet that you have an excessively pretty ward who is only just 18?
One doesn't blurt these things out to people. Cecily and Gwendolyn are perfectly certain to become extremely great friends. I'll bet you anything you like that. Half an hour after they have met, they'll be calling each other sister.
Women only call each other that after they've called each other a lot of other things first. Oh, my dear fellow, if we want to get a good table at Willis's, we'd much better go up and change. You know, it is nearly 7.
Oh, it is always nearly 7.
Well, I'm hungry.
Never knew you when you weren't.
But what shall we do after dinner? Go to the theatre?
Oh, no, I hate listening.
Well, let us go to the club.
Oh, no, I loathe talking.
Well, we might trot round to the Empire at 10.
Oh, no, I can't bear looking at things. It is so silly.
Well, what shall we do?
Nothing.
It is awful hard work to do nothing. Of course, I don't mind work when there is no definite object of any kind.
Miss Fairfax.
Gwendolyn, upon my word.
Algy, kindly turn your back. I've something very particular to say to Mr. Worthing.
Really, Gwendolyn, I don't think I can allow this at all.
Algy, you always adopt a strictly immoral attitude towards life. You're not quite old enough to do that.
My dear one.
Ernest. We may never be married. From the expression on Mamma's face, I fear we never shall. Few parents nowadays pay any regard to what their children say to them. The old-fashioned respect for the young is fast dying out. Whatever influence I had over Mamma, I lost at the age of 3. But although she may prevent us from becoming man and wife, and I may marry someone else, I know often nothing that she can do will ever alter my eternal devotion to you.
Dearest Gwendolyn.
The story of your romantic origin, as related to me by Mamma with unpleasing comments, is naturally stirred the deeper fibers of my nature. Your Christian name has an irresistible fascination. The simplicity of your character makes you extremely incomprehensible to me. Your town address at Albany I have. What is your address in the country?
The Manor House, Walton, Hertfordshire.
There's a good postal service there, I suppose. It may be necessary to do something desperate, but that requires serious consideration. I will communicate with you daily.
My own one.
How long do you remain in town?
For one day.
Good. Algie, you may turn round now.
Thanks, I've turned round already.
You may also ring the bell.
You let me see if you're a carrot, my darling.
Certainly.
I will see Miss Fairfax out.
Yes, sir.
A glass of sherry, Lane.
Yes, sir.
Tomorrow, Lane, I'm going Bunbury.
Yes, sir.
I shall probably not be back till Monday. You may put off my dress clothes, my smoking jacket, or the Bunbury suits.
Yes.
I hope tomorrow will be a fine day, Lane.
It never is, sir.
Lane, you are a perfect pessimist.
I do my best to give satisfaction, sir.
There's a sensible, intellectual girl. The only girl I ever cared for in my life. What on earth are you so amused at? Oh, I'm just a little anxious about poor Bunbury, that is all. If you don't take care, your poor friend Mr. Bunbury will get you into a serious scrape someday. I love scrapes. They are the only things in life that are never serious. Oh, Algie, that is nonsense. You never talk anything but nonsense. Nobody ever does.
Cecily, surely such utilitarian occupation as the watering of flowers is rather more duty than yours, especially at a moment when intellectual pleasures await you. Your German grammar is on the table. Pray open at page 15. We will repeat yesterday's lesson.
But I don't like German. It isn't at all a becoming language. I know perfectly well and am quite plain after my German lesson.
Child, you know how anxious your guardian is that you should improve yourself in every way. He laid particular stress on your German as he was leaving for town yesterday. Indeed, he always lays stress on your German as he is leaving for town.
Dear Uncle Jack is so very serious. Sometimes I think he is so serious, I think he cannot be quite well.
Your guardian enjoys the best of him. His gravity of demeanor is especially to be commended in one so comparatively young as he is. I know no one who has a high sense of duty and responsibility.
I suppose that is why Dorf looks a little bored when we three are together.
Cecily, I'm surprised at you. Mr. Webber has many troubles in his life. Idle merriment and triviality would be out of place in his conversation. You must remember his constant anxiety about that unfortunate young man, his brother.
I wish Uncle Jack would allow that unfortunate young man, his brother, to come down here sometimes. We might have a good influence over him, Miss Whistle. I'm sure you certainly would. You know, German and geology and things of that kind influence a man very much.
I do not think that even I could produce any effect on a character that, according to his own brother's admission, is irretrievably weak and vacillating. Indeed, I am not sure I would desire to retain him. I am not in favor of this modern mania turning bad people into good people at a moment's notice. As a man says, so let him breathe. You must put away your diary, Cecily. I really fancy I should keep a diary at all.
I keep a diary in order to enter the wonderful secrets of my life. If I did write them down, I should probably forget all about them.
Memory, my dear Cecily, is the diary we all carry about with us.
Yes, but it usually chronicles the things that have never happened and couldn't possibly have happened. I believe that memory is responsible for nearly all the 3-volume novels that Moody sends us.
Do not speak excitingly of the 3-volume novel, Cecily. I wrote one myself in earlier days.
Did you? How wonderfully clever you are. bad novels that end happily. They depress me so much.
The good ended happily, and the bad unhappy. That is what fiction is.
But it seems very unfair. And was your novel ever published?
Alas, no. The manuscript was unfortunately abandoned. I use the word in the sense of lost or mislaid. To give a child these speculations of profit, yes.
But I see dear Dr. Chasuble coming up through the garden.
Dr. Chasuble! This is indeed a surprise!
And how are we this morning? Miss Prism, you are, I trust, well.
Miss Prism has just been complaining of a slight headache. I think it would do her so much good to have a short stroll through the park, Dr. Chasuble.
Cecily, I've not mentioned anything about a headache.
No, dear Miss Prism. I know that, but I felt instinctively that you had a headache. Indeed, I was thinking about that and not about my German lesson when the came in.
I hope, Cecily, you are not inattentive.
Oh, I'm afraid I am.
That is strange. Were I fortunate enough to be Miss Prism's pupil, I would hang upon her lips. I spoke metaphorically. My metaphor was drawn from these. Mr. Worthing, I suppose, is not returning to town.
We do not expect him till Monday afternoon.
Ah, yes, he usually likes to spend his Sunday in London. He is not one of those whose sole aim is enjoyment, as by all accounts that unfortunate young man his brother seems to be. And I was not to serve Egeria and her pupil any longer.
Egeria, my name is Letitia, Doctor.
A classical illusion merely, drawn from the pagan authors. I shall see you both no doubt at evensong.
I think, dear Doctor, I will have a stroll with you. I find I have a headache after all, and walk back to
With pleasure, Miss Prism, with pleasure. We might go as far as the schools and back.
That would be delightful. Cecily, you will read your political economy in my absence. The chapter on the fall of the rupee you may omit. It is somewhat sensational. Even these metallic problems have a melodramatic side.
Horrid political economy, horrid geography, horrid German.
Mr. Ernest Worthing has just driven over from the station. His waters luggage with him.
Mr. Ernest Worthing, B4 the Albany W. Uncle Jack's brother. Have you told him Mr. Worthing was in town?
Yes, miss. He seemed very much disappointed. I mentioned that you and Miss Prism were gone. He said he was able to speak to you privately for a moment.
Ask Mr. Ernest Worthing to come out here. I suppose you had better talk to the housekeeper about your room for him.
Yes, miss.
Never met any really wicked person before. I feel rather frightened. I'm so afraid he will look just like everyone else. It does!
You are my little cousin Cecily, I'm sure.
You are under some strange mistake. I'm not little. In fact, I believe I am more than usually tall for my age. But I am your cousin Cecily. You, I see from your card, are Uncle Jack's brother, my cousin Ernest, my wicked cousin.
Oh, I'm not really wicked, cousin Cecily. You mustn't think that I'm wicked.
If you are not, then you've certainly been deceiving us all in a very inexcusable manner. I hope you've not been leading a double life. Pretending to be wicked and being really good all the time. That would be hypocrisy.
Of course, I have been rather reckless.
I'm glad to hear it.
And now that you mention the subject, I have been very bad in my own small way.
I don't think you should be so proud of that, though I'm sure it must have been very pleasant.
It's much pleasanter being here with you.
I can't understand how you were here at all. Uncle Jack would be back till Monday afternoon.
That is a great disappointment. I'm obliged to make the first train back to town Monday morning. I have a business appointment that I'm anxious to miss.
Couldn't you miss it anywhere but in London?
No, the appointment is in London.
Well, I know, of course, how important it is not to keep a business engagement at
to retain some sense of the beauty of life, but still, I think you had ought to wait until Uncle Jack arrives. I know he wants to talk to you about your emigrating.
About my what?
You're emigrating. He has come up to buy your outfit.
I certainly wouldn't let Jack buy my outfit. He has no taste in neckties at all.
I don't think you require neckties. Uncle is sending you to Australia.
Australia? I'd sooner die.
Well, he said at dinner on Wednesday night that you would have to choose between this world, the next world, and Australia.
The accounts I have received on Australia and the next world aren't particularly encouraging. This world is good enough for me, Cousin Cecily.
Yes, but are you good enough for it?
I'm afraid I'm not that. That is why I want you to reform me. You mind to make that your mission, if you don't mind?
I'm afraid I've no time this afternoon.
Well, would you mind my reforming myself this afternoon?
It's rather quixotic of you, but I think we should try.
I will. I feel better already.
You're looking a little worse.
Oh, that is because I'm hungry.
Oh, how thoughtless of me. I should have remembered that when one is going to lead an entirely new life, one requires regular and wholesome meals. Won't you come in?
Thank you. Might I have a bottomful first? I never have any appetite unless I have a bottomful first.
A macadamia?
No, I'd sooner have a pink rose.
Why?
Because you are like a pink rose, Cousin Cecily.
I don't think it can be right for you to talk to me like that. Miss Prism never says such things to me.
Then Miss Prism is a short-sighted old lady. You are the prettiest girl I ever saw.
Miss Prism says that all good looks are a snare.
They are a snare that every sensible man would like to be caught in.
I don't think I would care to catch a sensible man. I wouldn't know what to talk to him about.
You are too much alone, Dr. Chasuble. You should get married. A misanthrope I can understand, a woman-thrope never.
Believe me, I do not deserve so eulogistic a phrase. The precept as well as the practice of the primitive church was distinctly against matrimony.
That is obviously the reason why the primitive church has not left it up to the present day. And you do not seem to realize, dear doctor, that by consistently remaining single, a man converts himself into a state of permanent public temptation. Men should be more careful. This very celibacy leaves weaker vessels astray.
But is the man not equally attractive when married?
No married man is ever attractive, except to his wife.
And often I've been told, not even to her.
That depends on the intellectual sympathies of the woman. Maturity can always be depended on. Ripeness can be trusted. Young women are green. I spoke horticulturally. My metaphor was drawn from fruits. But where's Cecily?
Perhaps she followed us to the schools?
Mr. Worthing,
Mr. Worthy?
this is indeed a surprise. We did not look for you till Monday afternoon.
I have returned sooner than expected. Dr. Tossable, I hope you're well.
Dear Mr. Welby, I trust this garb of woe does not betoken some terrible calamity.
My brother.
And these prophets?
Is still leading his life of pleasure.
Dead.
Your brother Earnest dead.
Quite dead.
That's a lesson for him. I trust he will profit by it.
Mr. Welby, I offer you my sincere condolence. You have at least the consolation of knowing that you always were the most generous and forgiving of brothers.
Poor Earnest. He had many faults, but it is a sad, sad blow.
Very sad indeed. Were you with him at the end?
No, he died abroad in Paris, in fact. I had a telegram last night from the manager of the Grand Hotel.
What is the cause of death mentioned?
Severe chill, it seems.
As a man sows, so shall he reap.
Charity, dear Miss Prism, charity. None of us are perfect. I myself am peculiarly susceptible to drafts. Will the interment take place here?
No, he seemed to express a desire to be buried in